Now, ladies and gentlemen, for our English session, we will be discussing on Southeast Asia's sustainability ambitions. So now, without further ado, allow me to present our speaker on stage, the Managing Director of Center for the Edge, Clients and Markets from Deloitte, Southeast Asia. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dulisha Gulasuriya ขอเสียงปรบมือให้กับท่านด้วยค่ะ
Thank you. Hi everyone. It's good to be here in Bangkok. It's been 3 years since I was last here and to launch our report. I'm a partner at Deloitte, like she mentioned. I'm with a group, a futures unit called Center for the Edge. And the reason we call it Center for the Edge is we believe that all disruptions emerge from an edge, and there's opportunities that emerge from these edges. And one of those opportunities we'd like to talk to you about today is around sustainability. I spent most of my time in the US. 3 years ago, I moved back to Asia to showcase Asia from Asia, and this allows me to bring us into the global forum as well. So to start with, I want to start with 3 stories that come from the region. This first story is from Indonesia, and it's around the biggest issue we have around sustainability. It's around carbon capture. Indonesia is one of the largest greenhouse gas emitters in the world, and 82% of Indonesia's energy comes from fossil fuels. Now they have a goal to get to net zero by 2060, but in order to do that, they had to make some drastic and dramatic changes. The state-run oil-owned company is Pertamina, and Pertamina is a big pillar of how they're going to get to net to zero. And in order to do that, one of the things they're exploring is carbon capture. Carbon capture and storage is scrubbing the carbon dioxide from the air and storing it underground. This very early stage, and one of the leaders in this technology is ExxonMobil. So what Pertamina has done is they've signed a memorandum of agreement, an MOU, to partner with ExxonMobil to do more carbon capture in the region. If this works, they can reduce carbon emissions by 15%, which will go a long way towards the 2060 goal of being net zero. So this is a local, large entity working with a global entity to do well. Our next story comes from Malaysia, and is on biodiversity, which is really important for this part of the world. For this one, this area, this island called Simca, the Sugut Islands Marine Conservation Area, is in the Coral Triangle, the most biodiverse part of the ocean globally. And it's in Sabah in Malaysia, and there's a lot of overfishing and destructive fishing that has happened in the area. They were using dynamite and explosives, as well as cyanide, that's been killing off the corals. And the conservation efforts that are required was something that the government couldn't bear to afford. They knew they needed to do it, they knew what they needed to do, they just couldn't afford it. So what they did was they partnered with a non-profit called Barrier Reef, and they allowed them to do tourism, controlled tourism, only 60 guests per day in this location, in order to conserve it. So here was a the public entity working with a private non-profit to drive conservation in the region. And one of the big things here were turtles in this region, and turtle hatcheries have gone up 6 or 7-fold since this program went into play. So now you have a public entity working with a private entity to drive sustainability. The third example is from Thailand. Now Thailand has the unfortunate mark of being the 5th largest producer of marine plastics. And someone asked me the question yesterday in a meeting, like, who's number 1? Number 1 is India, 2 is China, 3 is Indonesia, 4 is Brazil, and Thailand is 5. Right. Marine plastics, big, huge issue. And it's an issue that Thailand's trying to tackle. They have made a commitment to reduce marine plastics by 50% by 2027. That's not far away. Now they can't do this alone. So they created a group called Public-Private Partnerships for Plastics, PPP Plastics, and in that they have both public and private entities. And one particular story we want to showcase here is the making of plastic roads. So along with Dow Chemicals, SCG, the cement group, Chiang Mai University and the Department of Highways and Rural Roads, they are looking at how they can embed plastics, the same plastics that would otherwise end in the ocean, into the asphalt. The roads are stronger, they are more weather resistant, and they would keep these plastics from going into the ocean. Now, if they do this, they could reduce, again, it would go a long way towards the goal of reducing the marine plastic waste by 2027. So these three, this goes into waste. Right? These three stories are really important to showcase the challenge we have in front of us in order to build a sustainable world, everything that's showcased here, but also the opportunity that it creates for us. So with this, let me walk through a few slides framing why this matters and why it matters for us here in particular. Now, a lot of the discourse around climate change that we hear comes from Europe and from US and the Western world. But the reality is, climate change is going to be won or lost in Asia, not from the other places. Do you know why? Because more than 60% of the world's population lives in Asia. And the region is young. 32 years old is the median age right now. 50% live in urban environments. By 2040, Asia will be the largest, more than half of the global GDP and 40% of global consumption. So regardless of what the rest of the world does, climate change is going to be won or lost in Asia. It's critical to that. It'll also have an outsized impact on Asia. 2/3 of the land, the economic activity, and 1/2 of the labor force is going to get impacted by climate change as well. So let's talk about Southeast Asia in particular, right? There's going to be outsized impact and outsized opportunity that comes out of it. By 2040, the region's energy demand will grow by 60%. It's a young population, we're growing fast. We need more energy. Currently, only 15% of our overall energy comes from renewables. That has to change. And the 5 most affected industries, if it's left unchecked, will account for 83% of the current economic output. So the impact to Southeast Asia is huge if we don't do something. But the opportunity is also massive. 5th largest economy in the world with a combined GDP of 2.3 trillion, population of 660 million, very young population as well, and 70% of the population live in urban areas. So let's put some numbers against this, right? Climate inaction, if we don't do something, it'll end up costing the Southeast Asia economy $28 trillion. It's a big number that comes from impacted workers who, because of the high heat that they won't be able to work, the loss of productive land because rising sea levels, stalling productivity and investments because they're trying to take care of just all the crises that are happening, disrupted flow of global currency, agricultural losses due to climate events, and diminished health and well-being from all of this. So the cost is huge. But if you flip this, if you look at the opportunity, we also have a huge opportunity. Not only can you not have the cost of 28 trillion, you could also have new jobs, the green economy, everything that we showcased here could create an opportunity of 12.5 trillion as well. So that is a big thing. We have to shift the world from looking at this as a risk, because we have to address the risk, but you can actually make a lot of money. There's a huge amount of money to be made in the green jobs and the green world. Again, looking at that, climate action will, if you address this green economy, will help Southeast Asia continue to grow at 3.5%. Brunei, Laos, Malaysia, Singapore, and Vietnam have already announced their commitments for net zero by 2050, which is kind of the global ask, the global standard. Thailand has 2065, Indonesia by 2060. All of this means that the governments are committing to make space. Now, private companies have to join in to fill in that space. So to support this, what can we, Deloitte, what can we do to support this? We are the in-betweens. So we just launched this report 2 days ago here in Bangkok because we think Bangkok is critical to this region. It's a big report. So we didn't print too many of these, but if you take with that QR code, you can download it. What we're doing with this report is trying to showcase the opportunities for more public-private partnerships, like those 3 examples we gave at the beginning. And a little bit more of what's in here. We're covering 5 topics around sustainability: energy and climate, which is the one that everyone talks about; biodiversity, which is critical for this part of the region, because right now it's about protecting. In the future, it'll be about carbon credits that we can have in the region. Water, which is a big issue that we need to deal with. Waste, which is one of the biggest things that this region adds in a negative manner that we could address, and gender equality. Now this particular one is spider diagram is from Thailand itself, and if you look at it, the outer circle, the outer ones, the white, that is the global expectation of where we need to be in order to get to a sustainable world. The green is what the current plans are to get there. So in some cases like waste, we're not getting to the global standard. The yellow is where we are currently. And so for 9 economies in the region, in Southeast Asia, we've done the same mapping, and for each one we give details of what it is, what the opportunities are, where you might want to do something in order to showcase that gap. And by showcasing the gap, we are creating the opportunity for every one of these companies you see here, the large companies, to come in and support achieving those goals. Now, we did this report in partnership with the US ASEAN Business Council because they are one of the biggest connectors between public and private. And that is how we believe Deloitte can help in this role as well. So I'd encourage you to take a read through this, see how we can help. And in order to unlock the potential in this region, in Southeast Asia, to keep the growth that we need to help our people survive, we need more people connected together, large and small, public and private, local and multinational, just like we saw in these early examples. We need everything that's happening here to happen at a scale 10 times, 100 times more than we are. And that's how we're going to make this world sustainable. Thank you.
My apologies, Mr. Dulisha. We have some questions for you. So the first question is, what is the current landscape of public-private partnership in Asia? Is there enough done?
I think there is some that's done, like the examples we gave, but I think there could be a lot more. I feel that in this part of the world, there are a lot of private companies that can do a lot. There are a lot of public companies that could do a lot as well, but we need more of it. And we are trying with this report and with our interjection with the US ASEAN Business Council, we'd like to encourage more and more public partnerships because that's the only way we're going to grow out of this.
Okay. Second question, which area of sustainability should Thailand begin to work on?
Well, Thailand, as you saw, is doing well in many of those parts. They do have to work on the energy mix because it's quite low right now. But I think one that they could particularly lean in is waste. That's the one that they're lowest in, and that's also where their plans on getting to where the global expectations are. So if we could do more examples like what SEG is doing around plastic roads or better recycling, I think that's where it can have the most impact across all those 4 things. But energy by far is a big one.
Thank you very much. And another question, what more can the private sector, public sector, and citizens do in the sustainability bid?
Right. So there are 3 groups, like the public sector, the private sector, and the citizens, consumers themselves. I'd say from the public sector, they need to create more incentives. They need to create more reasons for everyone else to lean in. If they can, because they play 2 roles. They're setting policies and incentives and they're setting regulations to force you into it. That's the carrot and the stick. I think they need to give more carrots right now to encourage the businesses to start shifting the economic models towards more sustainable goals. When it comes to the consumers, all of us here in the room and everyone visiting here, I think consumers can provide pressure to both the public sector and for companies to do more. So consumers can, with their wallet, choose to do more green stuff. They could choose to buy more EVs. They could, so they need to continue the pressure to get companies and public sector to shift. And the private sector, the companies, I don't think that they should wait for either the consumers or for the public sector to do something. They should lead. They have the technologies already to do this. So I think they can be an example of stepping ahead before even regulation comes and actually helping drive more regulation policy towards more green futures.
Okay, we hope that answer to all of your questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our speaker, Mr. Dulisha Kulasuriya. ขอเสียงประมือให้กับท่านด้วยนะคะ Thank you very much, sir, on the issue on Southeast Asia's sustainability ambitions.